And I'm Gabriel. So, Maria, I have to ask you, how are you? Are you busy?
Oh, slammed, swamped, buried. Pick your adjective. It's the standard response, isn't it? If you say, I'm great, feeling really relaxed, people almost look at you funny, like you're not trying hard enough. It's as if we've forgotten how to answer that question honestly. The default has become a performance of being overwhelmed.
The busy person sees that empty block and thinks, great, I can squeeze a meeting in there. The productive person sees it and knows that's where the next breakthrough is going to come from. Exactly. It's the standard greeting. How are you? Busy. It's almost a competition. But here's the thing that gets me. Everyone claims to be so busy. But when you look at what people are actually doing, it doesn't always line up with being productive. What a great analogy. You get these quick, empty calories of accomplishment, but you're starving your long-term goals.
And you need a lot of discipline to ignore the siren song of the urgent. Our brains are wired to react to the newest notification, the latest email. It takes deliberate effort to stay focused on the deeper work. Right. It's like being busy has become this weird status symbol. If you're not busy, you must not be important. You must not be in demand.
And the real paradox, the thing we're going to dig into today, is that the most successful people, the truly effective people, they often seem to have the most free time. They're not the ones running around talking about how swamped they are.
It's a form of self-sabotage, really. You're prioritizing the comfort of your current routine over the potential joy of achieving something you truly care about.
Because if you have silence, you might have to confront the fact that the path you're on isn't the one you want to be on. And that's a terrifying realization. It's much easier to just stay busy.
Which is so counterintuitive. So today, we're diving deep into the psychology of this. We're talking about why people pretend to be busy.
Let's get into it. I think the first layer of this, the most obvious one, is that busy feels like important. And it prevents you from developing a richer, more resilient identity based on your values, your character, or your relationships. You're outsourcing your sense of self to your to-do list. And the crazy part is, it's not even effective. All the research shows that overwork leads to diminishing returns. Your creativity plummets, you make more mistakes, and your health suffers. We're burning ourselves out for the sake of appearing busy, not for the sake of producing great work. And it's a game everyone feels pressured to play, from the corporate world to the startup scene and even in our personal lives. There's this unspoken expectation that if you have free time, you're somehow failing or falling behind.
Totally. It's a way to signal your value. At a core level, we all want to feel needed, right? We want to feel like we matter, like we're contributing. And saying, I'm busy, is a shortcut to that feeling.
It's a way of staying in your comfort zone while still feeling like you're working hard. It's a clever trick our minds play on us. Right. They work in sprints, they have periods of intense, focused work on their key priorities, and then they have deliberate rest and recovery. The always-on person can't do that. They operate at a constant, moderate level of distraction and never achieve the breakthroughs that come from deep work. It's a shield, too. If someone asks you to do something or invites you somewhere and you say, "Oh, I'm just so busy," it makes you sound in demand. It's a socially acceptable way of saying no, but it also elevates your status in that interaction.
Yeah, it's a status symbol. We just assume that if someone is busy, they must be successful. Their calendar's packed because people want their time. But that's a huge assumption, and it's often completely false.
Exactly. It's a sign of confidence. They know they're delivering value, so they don't need the external validation that comes from telling everyone how swamped they are.
And they're teaching the people around them how they work. They're setting a boundary that their time is for focused effort, not constant communication. That actually makes their communication more valuable when they do respond.
Right. We've created this narrative where a full calendar equals a full life. A packed schedule means you're winning. But what if it just means you're bad at prioritizing or bad at saying no? Right? We see the packed calendar and we invent a story about success. We don't see the person who is overwhelmed, disorganized, or simply bad at managing their own time. We fill in the blanks with a much more glamorous narrative. And as a result, they're a mile wide and an inch deep in their impact. The productive person is an inch wide and a mile deep. Their focus allows them to create something of real substance. It's a social script we all follow. Think about the historical context. For centuries, leisure was a status symbol. Only the wealthy had free time. The working class worked constantly. But in the 20th century, that flipped. Knowledge work became aspirational, and being busy became a proxy for being a valuable knowledge worker.
It really is, and it's a comfortable enemy. It keeps you safe from the risk of failure that comes with tackling big, ambitious projects. Exactly. It brings up this key idea that I think is so fundamental to this whole topic. People don't actually want free time, they want importance. And they've mistaken one for the other. So we choose the visible, easy thing over the invisible, hard thing. It's easier to answer 30 emails than to solve one complex problem. The emails make you feel a sense of accomplishment, even if that feeling is completely hollow. It's about having the courage to say no to good ideas, to make room for great ones. The busy person is a collector of good ideas they never act on. The productive person is a curator of great ideas they execute flawlessly.
That's it. That's the core of it. The thought of having an empty calendar is terrifying for some people because they equate it with being unimportant, unneeded. So they fill it with anything they can just to avoid that feeling. Not even close. How would you define the difference, Maria?
While the busy person accepts every invitation because a full calendar makes them feel important. They treat meetings as a measure of their relevance rather than a tool to be used sparingly and effectively.
The busy person, on the other hand, thrives on the distractions. It makes them feel connected and in demand. They're constantly context switching, and as a result, they never give any single task the full attention it deserves.
It's a fascinating and, frankly, a dangerous conflation. We've been conditioned to see a packed schedule as a sign of a successful life. The executive dashing from meeting to meeting, the freelancer juggling 10 clients, the parent racing between soccer practice and piano lessons. These are our cultural archetypes of success. We admire the hustle. For me, it's simple. Being busy is about doing many tasks. It's about volume. Being productive is about doing important tasks. It's about impact.
Volume versus impact. I like that. Busy is checking off 50 small things. Productive is moving the one big thing forward.
And so much of modern work is designed to make us feel busy, not productive. Think about it. Emails, Slack messages, endless meetings, they all create a sense of activity. Your inbox is flooded, notifications are pinging, it feels like work.
That's the ultimate goal. To build a life where your time is spent on things that truly matter to you, not just on things that fill your calendar. It requires courage to step off the hamster wheel, to say no, to embrace the quiet spaces.
But the reward is immense. It's the difference between a life of frantic motion and a life of meaningful progress.
It feels like you're working, but you're not actually making progress on your most important goals. You're just reacting. You're a firefighter putting out tiny little fires all day, but you never get to actually build the new fire station. That's a great term for it. And it's because real productivity is often quiet and slow. It's thinking. It's staring at a blank page. It doesn't look impressive from the outside. Busyness, on the other hand, is loud and visible.
That's such a great analogy. And so many people, I think, subconsciously fill their day with these reactive tasks to avoid the real work, the deep, difficult, important work.
Of course, because answering emails is easy. It gives you a little dopamine hit. Look, I cleared my inbox. But sitting down to write the first chapter of your book or to develop that new business strategy, that's hard. It requires focus. It's scary.
Right. So being busy becomes a form of procrastination. It's the most socially acceptable form of procrastination there is.
Yeah. There's a quote I love that sums this up. It's something like, you can be busy all day and still move nowhere. You're just spinning your wheels, creating a lot of heat and noise. But the car isn't moving down the road.
That is perfect. And it makes me think about the deeper psychological drivers here. We've talked about status, but what else is going on in our brains that makes us cling to this idea of being busy?
Well, we've touched on a few already. Number one is definitely to feel important. We covered that. But number two, and I think this is huge, is to avoid responsibility.
Oh, interesting. How so?
If you're too busy, you have a built in excuse for not taking on that new challenging project, or for not helping a colleague, or even for not dealing with problems in your personal life. I'd love to, but I'm just swamped. It's a get out of jail free card.
That's so true, and it connects to the third point, which we mentioned, to avoid deep work. The hard, creative, strategic thinking that actually moves the needle. Busyness is the enemy of deep work. It's the perfect excuse.
Busyness becomes a shield that protects you from the risk of failure. If you never take on the big project because you're too busy, you never have to find out if you would have succeeded or not. And that deep work is where all the value is created. It's the new marketing plan, the groundbreaking code, the insightful chapter of the book. Busyness is the enemy of value creation. And number four is to feel productive, even if it's what you called false productivity. Checking off a to-do list of 10 tiny items feels better in the moment than spending 3 hours on one big item and not finishing it. It's an illusion of progress.
Then there's number 5, to impress others. It's performative busyness. You want your boss and your colleagues to see you working late, to see your calendar packed, to hear you sigh about how much you have to do. It's like eating junk food. It's satisfying in the moment, but it provides no real nourishment. You feel full, but you're not healthy. That's what checking off tiny, meaningless tasks does for your professional life.
It's the classic case of what's urgent versus what's important. The busy person lives in the urgent, constantly reacting. The effective person lives in the important, intentionally acting on their priorities. Right, performing work. And here's a painful one, number 6, to justify not chasing their real goals.
Oof, yeah. I'd love to start that business or learn that instrument or write that novel, but I'm just too busy with my job. It's the ultimate excuse for letting your dreams die.
Because trying and failing is scarier than just being too busy to try. And number 7, which is related, a simple fear of free time, a fear of being alone with your own thoughts. This one is so important. Busyness becomes the excuse that allows you to avoid the vulnerability of chasing a dream. It's a way to rationalize staying still while telling yourself you're running a marathon.
It's a profound distraction. Busyness acts as noise that drowns out the quiet questions that we might not be ready to answer. It's a buffer against introspection. The silence can be deafening. If you're constantly busy, you don't have to confront the big questions like, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? You just keep running on the hamster wheel.
And that brings us to the last one, number 8. For many people, their entire identity is tied to being a busy person. If you take away their busyness, who are they? It's a core part of how they see themselves and how they want the world to see them.
It's a really fragile identity when you think about it. And it's not just an individual thing, is it? It feels like our whole society has this problem, this busy culture. This is the final trap. When your identity is the busy person, you have to keep manufacturing busyness to feel like yourself. You become dependent on it. An empty calendar doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like an existential crisis.
Oh, absolutely. The whole hustle culture phenomenon, the rise and grind mentality, it's everywhere on social media. People posting pictures of themselves working at 5 a.m. or celebrating that they worked a 16-hour day.
We glorify burnout. We wear it like a badge of honor. If you're not exhausted, you're not working hard enough. And on the flip side, we see rest as laziness. Taking a break, having a hobby, just doing nothing. It's often seen as a moral failure.
Yeah, it creates this bizarre social competition. You go to a party and what do people talk about? They complain, brag about how busy they are. I'm just back to back all week. You think that's bad? I haven't had a day off in a month.
It's so true. It's the who's more exhausted Olympics. I heard this line once that really stuck with me. People don't compete over happiness, they compete over who is busier.
Wow, that hits hard because it's so accurate. Nobody ever says, guess what, I took a nap today and it was amazing, but they will tell you they answered 200 email.
And this is where we come back to that paradox we mentioned at the start, because this culture of busyness is completely at odds with how the most successful, most effective people actually operate.
Exactly. And it creates this toxic environment where people feel guilty for taking time off. They check emails on vacation, they answer calls at dinner. We've blurred the lines between work and life to the point where they've almost disappeared. And technology plays a huge role in this, doesn't it? The smartphone is like a busyness generating machine in our pockets. We're always on, always available.
Exactly. The most successful people are not busy, they are focused, and there's a world of difference. They're not doing more, they're doing more of what matters.
Precisely. It's the difference between being a sprinter and a marathon runner. The busy person is sprinting from task to task, getting exhausted quickly but not covering much ground. The productive person is moving at a steady, sustainable pace, focused on the finish line.
So, what are their habits? What do they do differently? I think the first one has to be delegation. They don't try to do everything themselves.
Absolutely. They are ruthless about identifying their highest value tasks, the things that only they can do, and they delegate or eliminate everything else. They don't get bogged down in administrative work or small decisions.
And they protect their time fiercely. Their calendar isn't packed back to back, it has empty space in it. Time for thinking, for reading, for strategy. Time to just be.
Which means they say no constantly. They say no to meetings, no to requests, no to opportunities that aren't a perfect fit. Warren Buffett famously said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything."
That's it. Saying yes makes you busy. Saying no makes you effective. They work on the big decisions, not the small tasks. They'd rather spend a week thinking about one critical strategic choice than spend that week answering 1,000 emails.
It reminds me of that concept: rich people buy time, poor people sell time. The busy person is constantly selling their time for small things. The effective person is using their resources to buy back their time so they can invest it in high leverage activities.
That's a powerful way to put it. So, if we're trying to spot the difference in the wild, what are the signs that someone is actually productive and not just performing busyness? It's a complete mindset shift. Instead of viewing an empty calendar as a threat, they see it as an opportunity. It's space to think, to create, to connect the dots in a way you simply can't when you're rushing from one thing to the next.
I think the number one sign is the most obvious one. They don't talk about being busy. They just don't. It's not part of their vocabulary. If you ask them how they are, they'll give you a real answer.
Yes, that's a huge tell. Another one is that they often respond slowly, not because they're disorganized, but because they're thoughtful. They're not constantly checking their email. They have dedicated times for communication, and when they reply, it's considered and not just a knee-jerk reaction. It's because their results do the talking. They don't need to broadcast their effort. Their success is evident in their output, not in their complaints about their workload.
This is a big one. The busy person is addicted to the dopamine hit of instant responses. The productive person understands that immediate responses are the enemy of deep work. They prioritize focus time over being hyper-responsive. They focus on only a few important things. If you ask them what their priorities are, they can name one or two. The busy person will give you a list of 20 things.
And, as we said, they say no often. They're comfortable declining things that don't align with those few priorities. It's not personal, it's just focus. This is the essence of strategy. Strategy is not about what you do, it's about what you don't do. The productive person has a very clear not to-do list. The busy person says yes to everything.
And they're not afraid to be seen as unhelpful for saying no. They know that by protecting their focus, they will ultimately be far more helpful by delivering on the few things that really matter. Right. Another sign, they have dedicated thinking time blocked out in their schedule. It might look like an empty block, but that's their most important meeting of the day. A meeting with their own thoughts.
I love that, a meeting with their thoughts. And they don't attend unnecessary meetings. They're ruthless about asking, what is the goal of this meeting? Is my presence absolutely required? If not, they're out. Productive people understand that thinking is the work. For a knowledge worker, the highest leverage activity is thinking. It's the source of all value. So they protect that time as if it were the most important meeting in their week. Because it is.
They understand that most meetings are where productivity goes to die. They are incredibly disciplined about protecting their time from low-value, poorly organized meetings. They demand an agenda and they demand clarity on why their presence is essential. You'll often find they work in silence, they turn off notifications, they close unnecessary tabs. They create an environment for deep focus. They don't just hope it happens.
And I think the ultimate sign is this. They produce results, not just activity. You don't hear about how many hours they worked. You see the incredible thing they built, or the smart decision they made, or the impactful project they launched. Their output speaks for itself. They're architects of their environment. They know that focus isn't something that just happens, it's something you create. So they eliminate distractions ruthlessly. They understand that a single notification can derail 20 minutes of deep work.
Results, not activity. That's the perfect summary. So as we wrap this up, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What's the one thing they should remember from this conversation?
I think the message is clear and simple. Stop trying to be busy. Start trying to be effective. Audit your time. Question your tasks. Ask yourself, is this moving me forward, or is it just making me feel occupied?
I agree. Recognize that busyness is often a trap. It's a form of comfort, a way to avoid the hard choices and the scary work. But it's a dead end. Busy people run in circles.
And productive people move forward. It's about direction, not speed. Choose importance over activity. Choose impact over volume. And it's not just about your work, it's about your life. A life filled with busyness is a life lived on the surface. A life built around effectiveness has depth and meaning. It's about having time for your health, your relationships, your curiosity.
And maybe the next time someone asks you how you are, try resisting the urge to say busy. Try telling them about something you're excited about instead. Let's change the conversation.
I love that. Let's leave our listeners with one final thought to frame this all. It's simple. Being busy makes you tired. Being productive makes you successful.
Perfectly said. That's all the time we have for today's episode of The Behavior Code.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.